As we do our executive sessions tonight. And I'd like to welcome you to the October 2nd Board of Directors meeting for MSAB 60. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our Vice Chair will now read our public input statement.
The first public input session is a 21-minute session with each person having no longer than 3 minutes in which to make a statement. But a second public input session may be held at the end of the meeting if allowed by the board chair. Each speaker will give his/her name, address, and reason for speaking. Public input is designated for district residents, but the board chair may grant non-residents the opportunity to address the board. Statements concerning subject matter that falls under the law regarding executive sessions, for example, matters involving personnel, cannot be made during public input. We as a community pledge to treat each other as we wish to be treated. We pledge to seek understanding when there may be disagreement. Regardless of outcomes or opinions, we pledge to move forward with respect. This is time for comments and/or questions for the board, but please be aware that questions may not be able to be answered at this meeting.
At this point, I'd look to the attendees to see if there's any public input.
Sorry, I'm scrolling to wherever. Do I have to speak in anything?
Just turn on the women's.
Not the base. Yep. I did?
Yeah, there's actually live now.
Perfect. My name is Matthew Leggett. I live at Merchants Row in Lebanon Banks. Do I have to spray names? Ridiculous.
Go for it.
Okay. First of all, I just want to say that I appreciate teachers in the district. I think all the district teachers work very hard, and I appreciate that very much. I'm up here reacting to what I've seen so far. Josh and Nancy have had to endure a lot from the sport. It's frustrating for me as a parent. I had a son that just graduated and a son that's a sophomore in school right now. I think Josh and Nancy are working for better academic excellence in school. I see the district kind of different people here on the board seem to not like their opinion a lot when they're trying to push for better academics. The Facebook page takes a lot of time in the sport. I mean, you guys talk about their Facebook page. They're actually reaching out to the community, saying things that maybe the sport has never wanted to say before. Maybe it's not the thing that everyone wants to hear, but it's the truth. We're telling the kids, half the kids do not meet district standards. Not meeting standards is not just something we make an excuse for, especially when coming as a parent, especially when it's time on the football team. If he's on an alignment, if he misses his block, his coach nods at him, says, "You failed the team, quarterback got sacked. This is how we fix it. This is how we move forward." He doesn't make excuses for it. Our kids have them not meeting standards. There's no excuse for it. We can't say, "Well, this test is bad," or "This test doesn't meet whatever," or "We don't have enough money for it." It's our fault. We're failing the kids. We have two board members that continue to bring it up at the meetings, and they continually get told that we're losing teachers for it, or whatever other excuse to silence them for bringing out the obvious. We are failing the students. Get them prepared for life. My son who just graduated with others. He just wants to be a commercial pilot. He's having intensive study to become a commercial pilot. He did not know how to read a table of contents. That is abysmal. And I couldn't believe it. A test that should have taken him an hour and a half, he would spend 6 hours with me. And I asked him what's wrong. So we went over a question together. He had to get information from the owner's manual specific to that plane, and he didn't know how to find it. How does that happen? How's he graduate high school? Do you not know that? It doesn't make any sense. So saying that again at 50%, and we're doing fine, we're failing students. We're not doing fine. So when these are brought up, how do we make this better? Just look back. 20 years ago, Noble wasn't doing that bad, right? We changed the way we taught. The administration is the one that tells how the teachers how to teach. The board is the one that approves how those teachers are going to do it. So if the board isn't keeping the administration in check and rubber stamping whatever the administration says, then the board is really the one at fault. The board has to make the decision to say, no, we're not going to continue the way we're teaching. We're going to look back at the way that we know does work. We're going to use that format in order to make sure the kids know what they're doing when they leave the school.
I'm going to just ask Ed to wrap it up because we're at 3 minutes plus.
Okay, I just have a little thing at the end, so I don't know. That won't.
Sure.
Okay. I just want to say thank you again for Josh and Nancy bringing this up. Hopefully their dedication to academic excellence rubs off the rest of the board, and we can move forward and making sure that our kids are prepared for the future. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. We have other public input.
Jennifer Zone, 918 me. I have 2 kids in the district and all education. In regards to Dr. Swiger's presentation, I didn't know if we were going to hear about specific plans to reverse action. She listed home life factors, but curriculum, accountability, strong leadership, and high expectations also affect student performance. I have emailed parents that say that kids are struggling in school, they're not getting that extra help. And push go on to the next grade. So I'm blaming on a little bit of what I see across the nation. The decline has started before COVID. It seems like we didn't give all those kids the resources they needed to catch up, maybe. I'm thankful to the board members who asked questions and prioritize academics. Watching these meetings, there's a lot of attention on social media content and some failings. Some like using notice of the very thing that they do on social media. And it's just inappropriate. Meanwhile, 71% of our students are meeting state expectations for science and what is being taught in science and how. 55 are reading math and 40% are reading ELA standards. And that is what really, worst of all, I think 81% of 8th graders are reading expectations for math. What if they perform, let's say, college, trade school, or a job? By the way, meeting state expectations of proficiency doesn't actually mean college related, but I'm reading about you on that same page. But your priority should be the quality of our kids' education, holding staff accountable when they cross the line and are not truthful. Where's the integrity and trust there? How do you think that makes us feel? Asking for data and time to review presentations is not hurtful. I'm concerned like how a presenter feels is more important than giving board members the full picture of time to process it. These are all things that actually harm the district. We are also taking time out of academics to teach all students social emotional learning, and I don't find it appropriate for, say, I'm not a science teacher who can teach my kids about these topics. And do the teachers even want to teach these lessons? So from the NWEA presentation, I asked the board to focus on how to get our state scores up and improve education, special ed, low or not, with honesty and transparency. I heard Abden talk about tier 1 and 2 supports at TSS, and looking at special ed.
Excuse me. I'm going to ask you to wrap it up. We're at 3 minutes.
Yep. I'm asking if we can get like a focus group or committee with the findings and plan for improvement, action items. And I'd also like to see the ACT, SAT on track data. One of the last program reviews for ELA, math, science, and social studies were, which is these test results we observe, about all of us.
Thank you for your statement. Do we have other public input?
I'm Dolford. I'm on Jericho Lane in North Berwick. I've heard other parents speak tonight to the board about a need for additional resources in order to improve our educational performance. And I'd like to remind other members of the board that during budget discussions, additional resources were so far out of consideration that slashing resources, what was actually was under consideration. And so if we want to improve things for kids, we need to actually fund those resources. And as somebody who's a Horatio Alger National Scholar, if you don't know what that is, Horatio Alger is the writer who invented the rags riches trope for America, right? I moved out of my parents' house when I was a junior. And I ended up on my own, working full-time outside of school. And I know exactly what it means to need a support network. Despite that, I've had support at school because that school was resourced. And because of that, I was able to get into college and grad school and be one of the most difficult degrees that we offer in engineering, a master's in chemical engineering. That only happened because my school was adequately resourced and funded to support kids who needed that additional help. So if we're going to sit here and throw stones at how well we're performing academically, we need to remember that every budget season. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement. Do we have any other public statements at this time? Okay, then moving on to our next agenda item. We're going to be looking at the minutes of September 4th, 2025. We basically put these on hold, pending some adjustments based on our conversations of our last meeting. Do we have any other updates or changes to those minutes?
There's been, oh, Lord.
I'm sorry. I saw these after the other one, and then another one too. Just in the beginning, a meeting of the board of directors was held in person with all members attending, except I think everyone was attending except you were. Allie was virtual.
Remote if.
Yeah.
Was this the 4th or the 18th?
The 4th. Okay.
Perfect.
And then in approving the minutes, Mr. Shaver and Ms. Basco, who both abstained. I just want to make sure that they both abstained.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other updates or changes? And do we have a motion to approve the minutes of September 4th as written and amended?
Having a motion.
Motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of passing the September 4th minutes? All those against? And the motion has been made and passed. Moving on to our last meeting notes, September 18th. Do you have any amendments to those notes? Nancy?
I think we have the same thing. Oh, thank you. The, Allie wasn't in attendance, an attendance thing. And I had something else I wanted to bring up. Just a request on the minute that when we have public input, if the public input is inaccurate, can we fix it or put a note in that it needs, that the accurate statement, what the accurate statement would be? And if it's against or in violation of our policy, could we just eliminate the statement altogether on the public input part?
And you,
Can I elaborate? Yeah, SAD 60 is not the lowest in New York County per pupil spending as of 2024. I don't know whether 2025 has changed that, but I don't have it's not posted yet, so I don't know if you guys have it. But we're not the lowest. We're fifth to the lowest in New York County out of 15. So we're not terrible.
So I would suggest that the board discuss whether or not, because typically what I do is I just take the public input and put it in its.
But you must know when it's accurate and when it isn't.
Well, I think sometimes that would be considered a judgment call that I'm not really willing to make on that. So I think there's a question for the board as to how you want me to address that.
Personally, I think we need to leave it as is. I mean, that is what was said. That is what's on the record.
Yeah.
If we had a fact-checking department at school, I would say that's a big old waste of money. But also, that would be the only way to really vet what people are saying, like in real time.
We can also just put a caveat on it that just states this is the opinion of the opinion of the person.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's it. That's
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It goes into the whoops. Rick. It goes into the minutes like that. It appears that this is the actual fact, and I'm always concerned that facts are misrepresented. So, and I don't like it, because we don't. It's tough to correct misrepresented facts. So, and I'd be happy to share it with you if I see it. If you want to do it that way.
I think Sue's point is a good one. If she simply puts these are the opinions of the people who spoke, not ours. I don't know how we change what somebody said.
I just would put in statement, corrected it. I wouldn't change it. This is what the person said, but in parentheses or something out, by the way, or whatever. I just think it's important for the sake of the community that they hear the facts, not just because we are responsible for sharing information on those minutes. When I was in special ed, the minutes of a meeting practically law. So I'm very interested. The minutes are always very, very important. We have live stream TV. We can go back and revisit it. That's not something we had when we were doing meetings. We had those minutes, and those minutes had to be accurate. So that's all.
And I agree with you in terms of the accuracy of representing what was stated. So the question is, do we then put caveats on things that say, by the way, we think this is the way?
I'm not sure.
I'm not comfortable with that, but I'm willing to hear from folks. Typically we just try to just report what's stated as best we can. So
I think it's a good point to bring up. If the statement I think is they're saying, hey, look, these are people's opinions, right? They're not necessarily facts, right? And we encourage people to do their own research, right? That information. But I do think if board members, we talk about why do we edit minutes, right? To try to get them as accurate as possible. So if we know that there are statements in our minutes that are patently false, I do think it's important for us to note that specifically. We're not going to catch everything. I don't think we should ever have that approach that we're going to catch everything. But there are two statements in there now that are patently false. Number one is that we're not the lowest per pupil expenditure in York County. And number two, that's where we don't have any debts. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. But it's patently false that we don't have debts. We know we have debts. We certainly have leases, and we just had the HVAC that we're paying off for the next 10, 15 years. I think we have nearly $1 million in leases and debt in our budget right now. So I just think if our board members know that they're patently false, we should at least speak to them and say, hey, look, we know that these are specific false statements, but I also agree putting in that statement and just what I said in the very beginning.
Go ahead.
No, I would just say that I think that this is certainly a slippery slope if we're asking that. I think a lot of things depend on what resource you look at, and you can find information to support things. But I also think it's really dangerous if we have 15 people making really quick statements that are all false, and then Sue has to now go fact check 15 statements and put in correct information. I don't think we can ask that of her. I think just putting in, I would be in favor of just putting in a blanket statement of these are the views of the person who spoke. These didn't reflect the views of the board or something like that. I think that would cover it. I don't think it's fair for us to do that. And I would hate to discourage the public from being afraid to come speak because they were going to be fact checked on what they said. We want to hear from people. We love that people come to speak at public input. And I think if we're going to start fact checking what they say, that could be a really slippery slope about inclusivity and encouraging people to come be part of our board meetings.
I don't want to belabor this much longer. I do not want you fact checking. I agree with Lauren 100%. Yes, that'd be a complete waste of time of administration. I'm asking us as board members, if we read it and we know something's patently false, to at least draw attention to it. And it is in line with our policy BEDH. This is public participation at board meetings. I'm specifically referencing letter B. Public input must be expressed politely and respectfully, just like our guest did tonight. Thank you very much for that. Focused on issues and not personalized. Sources may be required for numerical and other claims. It goes on to say in D, the statement must be factual,
to the best knowledge of the speaker to the point and delivered in an orderly and respectful manner. And it is the chair's responsibility to determine whether the statement is appropriate for public input. And I'm just saying, I agree with Nancy in saying we should call attention to those issues that we know are patently false, in the hope that our chair would recognize that and say, yeah, we probably shouldn't have that as part of our minutes, since we know now those are patently false.
Did you want to say something?
But Lauren pretty much said what I wanted to say. And I think that I don't read that statement the same way that you do. I think people generally do come here thinking they have sources, but boy, I think I could argue the factual accuracy of pretty much everybody who spoke tonight. And I think there are multiple different sources that people can use. You could pick one or two things, but I would agree. I think it's discouraging to people to come in to be doing that. And I don't think it's a good use of administrative time. The better use is to just report that it is the opinion or the sources used by the people who are coming in to speak and not ours.
We also have the tool of other for the following meeting, where if you, as a board member, felt that something was expressed inaccurately, that's your chance in a public forum to maybe correct a public statement that was made earlier. I feel like that at least gives the chance, like we see a lot of the same people every week. So that at least gives them the chance to be present for the adjustment made. Whereas if we do it kind of like under the cloak of darkness while we're reviewing our minutes, and then maybe they don't even ever see those minutes come out, it can just, create some ill will with the community.
So do we have a plan to how we want to go forward with this?
Should we make a vote just to include the disclaimer?
That would be appropriate, I think.
It's also just a disclaimer. What we want to say.
I think you had a good one. Well, you sounded good. It's the opinion.
These are the statements of those people, public who come to speak, and their sources, not the opinions or sources used by the board. Right.
You want to wordsmith that more, Josh?
So an Audrey can too. Not my best work.
Any other comments or discussion on that? So we have a motion. Has it been seconded? Do you want to read the motion again?
I make a motion to include a disclaimer in public comment stating that it is the opinion of the public based on their own sources and not representative of the board or our sources.
Second. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of passing? All those who oppose? All those who abstain? Okay, motion's been made and passed. And we will have a disclaimer on public input based on source materials and opinions. So moving on to the September 18th minutes, we are going back to the September 18th minutes. You had a couple of corrections, Nancy.
Yep, just the.
I think I got it. Yep.
Were there any other? We have a motion to approve the minutes of September 18th. I make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion that was seconded. Do we have any discussion? All those in favor of passing those minutes? All those opposed? So we have a motion and it has been passed. Next order of business is an update on Mary Hurt Academy.
Are still awake?
Kevin.
This was a request from the board in August when Samantha Grace was nominated for and voted in as the principal educator for MHA. And she's also still doing some IEP coordination. So the board wanted to just hear how things have been going and just see how manageable it is for you. And so here we are.
Item of clarification. I could be so pissed off. Everything's going great. So it's been about 30 days since I've been here. So I've been part-time administrator at Mary Hart Academy and then part-time for editing coordinator, primarily for most qualifying. I do that most of my IEP coordinating on Mondays and Tuesdays, but I support from Melissa and Nicole, the assistant special ed director. On those days, we have a workshop. They usually come and are there those 2 days. So if I'm in meetings and something comes up, they're able to be able to answer questions on that phone piece from someone. I didn't necessarily have like meetings all day long, so there are facing times so that I can yell and communicate with students. So it's been working out fine. I haven't felt any problems with that. And we started, my roster was around 18 defense, and then we had some moves and changes. And so we're at 14 currently, with 2 more women's within the next week. And then maybe within 45 days, and say another couple. And we had some inquiries from outside. We've had a couple inquiries from other school districts. We're trying to help to district students recreate in the past. We have 3 teachers, 2 ed techs, a social worker, myself, and a therapy dog. So it's been working great. And the students are great. I mean, most of them they need to be coming in. I either case manage them myself or I use them for years. So these students are all new me, and I think that really helps. I think one of the other things that would be easier for me coming in and hit the right ground running is that like I said before, I worked in a program similar to this in another district for 3 years and kind of helped develop the whole program. So a lot of the positive behavior support plan that we had in place is the same one that we use there. So I was already familiar with a lot of it. So they had to learn that part. Once they come in day one, understand the level system and what it means and how the point sheets that we use are for them. So I think that really, really helps me a lot. I think the thing that gave me the hardest problem the first 2 weeks of school was getting the health system right. So I guess that's the only huge issue then. I felt like I was waiting there. We're doing a lot of stuff in the community already. We have every day. They all have English every day. They all have math every day, science and social studies, and elective. During the elective, the kids are able to choose extended learning opportunities. Some of them are working on their past credits that they might need to make up for graduation. That's first and foremost. When they get that done, then they can choose to do an ELO or some sort of activity that we have. We have the food pantry that comes in. We help them. They get huge deliveries from Good Shepherd Food Bank. So some of my students help with that. When those come in, we're getting back involved with the Mary Hart Closet. That place is solid, packed full of clothes, and there's tons of stuff to be doing there. So the students, as you know, all have to get 60 hours of community service. So that's a real good opportunity for them to go over there and work some. And some of them really like it because it's they call them POX and some inventory system. I think that's cool. So we have done trail walks on Fridays. We have a little bit longer of an extended learning opportunity. I shortened some of the blocks and the bells so that we can take a longer time. So where we went to Great Works Land Trust, did trail cleanup 1 week. We went to Wells Beach, and we're going to Wells Beach and do a cleanup there. And we have a really good opportunity next week to go to Maine Construction Career Day, which is in Bath, Maine, and it is opened up to some of our students, and we're going to go there and there's all kinds of different machinery and construction and trades workers there. they'll can go around to the different booths and talk to them. So I'm really excited about that. And my seniors are it's coming. The older kids go first. That's something yes, next year go and the younger kids will row. So we only have 8 slots, but I'm excited for that. And we have some other opportunities with York Woods. They actually they volunteered to give us like the soil for our greenhouse. So we're going to redo the greenhouse. There's some like the whole plastic needs to be redone and maybe some of the framing, and they're going to donate all of that. The kids just have to go out and measure it. So they know how much to order, but they're going to do that, and then they're going to come and do mini lessons, greenhouse lessons, and I'm really excited because I think that they're excited, but they're not really excited. But I think once they start getting all this stuff grow, they're going to get, they're going to get shots up over it. I think we have a lot of good stuff going on. You guys have any questions?
How do you use your therapy dog?
Oh, no, Mark, pardon? That's the most nice picture of him. He comes every day with our social worker, and he goes, he's in with individual therapy sessions. He kind of goes around to the classroom. The kids take him out when they need to have, a motor break or something. They'll take him out to the fields or pass away and during the check-in ball. He hands out and he provides support to the kids. He really does, and they all. It was so cute. We put it because you were like, "Where did he go today?" And the kid just saw him come into like what we call as our Zen den, and he had gone in there to make sure like this student was okay. And so it's really a cute relationship, and he knows, he loves all the kids. And I think he gets treats a lot from me. That's
great. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And if you guys have any opportunities out in the community, send them my way. We would love to get out where the communities are and be a part of the community, doing volunteer work, or even they're looking, extended learning opportunities. We're always looking to partner with somebody. I know in the past we've had somebody come in to do some woodworking with the kids, some art with the kids. So if any of you or know anybody that has any challenges or whatever, we'd love to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks out of the
Stay tuned. Okay, our next order of business is the much anticipated transportation update.
Okay, we will start with congratulations. We had a driver pass the test last week, so they started running driving bus 7. And then yesterday we had another driver pass the test, so she is taking over bus 48. Those were 2 of the runs that had been canceled for a longer period of time than we had hoped. They were both elementary runs, both in Berwick. And what that caused was a lot of parent pickup on Blackberry Hill Road, which is always difficult. Mm-hmm. And so we worked really hard on that piece, but we also, because we have two new drivers taking those runs, all 4 of the runs at Hussey School are running. So that is very exciting. Leanne Kamet, who is our director, has been continuing to interview. She's interviewing for drivers. There was one route that needed to be consolidated because we did not have enough drivers, and that was an intermediate / Knowlton run. So that's going to be the next run that we're looking at getting redeveloped, and then we're going to put the driver in there. We also posted a position for a part-time driver, part-time assistant director, and we did so because we felt like that position could not only help with some of the more director pieces, but also help bring in somebody who may already be driving but wants that experience, to use both experiences. It became clear through this routing that just having one person do all this is quite difficult and quite challenging. So because we hadn't had positions filled, we were able to do that without impact to the budget. So we have we have some candidates for that, and we will interview candidates as they're coming in for that position. So that will be helpful. And we also have a van driver position that we have, and we also have some monitors that we're still working on, but she's interviewing fast and furious. And so I think that gives a big summary of kind of where we are since our last board meeting. And I know, Ally, you had asked for this to be on the agenda. So do you have any questions or?
So this might be, I don't know how accessible this information is, but I am taking a course on geography, and a lot of it has to do with policies and equity and all that sort of good stuff. So I want to make sure that when we are choosing which routes aren't running, we're choosing it in a way that prioritizes kids that may not have another option to get to school, particularly downtown stops where we know the most economically disadvantaged people are. So I know that's kind of a lot of work on the transportation director, but I would kind of like to see if we're seeing any trends in our communities of like, okay, the majority of our economically disadvantaged kids are on these 3 roads or these 2 roads. And are we making sure that when those buses are rerouted, those kids are taking priority that may not have a car at their house?
Sure. So a couple of things. Last year and in the beginning of this year, when some runs were canceled due to illness or something short, we did try to put other drivers into different runs, so it wasn't always the same runs. We had an exception of that for bus 7 and bus 48, which hadn't happened in many years, and I don't anticipate that it's going to hopefully happen with 2 out for long term at the same time without any drivers to do so. So we did make accommodations for families, like we did have families notify us if they needed transportation, and we were able to reroute different buses to pick up students so that they could attend school. We did have Tina Harding, Principal Harding at Hussey School, monitor the absences. And there were 4 students from 48 that each missed a day, and they were called out for being ill, not for transportation issues. We also opened the school up early and had the school stay late. So if parents had a hardship and couldn't drop off right at those times when the buses were coming in or when the buses were dismissing, that they were able to do so. So we are looking at that as well.
Yes, because the reason I mention it is obviously in light of Dr. Schweiger's presentation, when we're talking about the kids that are missing school, obviously it tends to err on that side where the economically disadvantaged kids are not getting full instruction every year. So I think maybe when we send out that notification about, okay, if you can't get to a bus, let the administration know. Maybe we could send in that notification, here are the options you're going to be given. Because there was a lot of conjecture online about like, oh, they want me to throw my kid in a bus with another neighbor or something like that. I kept hearing that online. Like they're presenting that we just put our kid in the bus with a neighbor. And I don't think that was, but I think the rumor mill kind of goes and then it takes on a mind of its own. So maybe if we do have this experience again, if we could send just a detailed list, okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to have this option, this option, and this option. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that one.
I just wanted to piggyback on that because I did the same thing. See some screenshots with some bus for notifications. And I guess I had 2 clarifying questions. Well, 2 things. They were screenshots shared. So I don't know that it was the second text didn't have it, but the first text did. I don't know. Some did say if you need assistance, please reach out. Some did not say that. So I want to make sure that all notifications for 2nd, 3rd, whatever, always have here's the contact information to reach out. And then that being said, I just want to confirm without question, if a parent or guardian gets that notice and they cannot get their kid to school and they call, some kind of arrangement will be made so that child can get to school 100%, even if they're later or
yes. Even if it's the principal picking up.
Okay. Because I feel like there were questions on that. And I was like, did you call?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes.
Around the suggestion of a part-time director, assistant director, and driver. How many days is our director driving? Like I know in the last 30 days, little Abnormal will have 2 major runs out at the same time. So I suspect she's probably been driving more,
She's been driving nonstop since last year.
right?
Arrival and dismissal.
So my wonder is like, is it really the need of an assistant director, or do we just need a full fleet of drivers so that she's not driving and she's doing the director job? Do you see my question?
I think it's both. I think we certainly need her to be able to be full-time director. So we do need the full fleet, but we also, because of the sophistication of the routing system, we do need continued work and collaboration with that.
She's using software, right? Is it Bus? Is that what I have it?
Yep.
That's right, software. That software is supposed to streamline the process significantly from like before it was Excel before they had software, right? But transportation directors use Excel and oh my gosh, what they did, right? They did lots of different ways. I'm just not in favor of adding a half-time assistant director and a half-time driver. I am in favor of a full fleet of drivers so that our director can do their job. And if we need to have some that are on standby all the times, I would almost rather be given some proposals for, stand-in drivers that are not regular route people, but they fill in, but we keep them like we have building subs. I'm thinking like a building sub situation where they're not subbing in a classroom every single day, but most days they are. Something along those lines, I think would benefit our transportation department. Again, experience with transportation, you get 2 people in there. The transportation director does have a secretary. Is that correct?
There is a secretary, and
There is some-
also was a previous full-time director, assistant director with the director.
Yeah.
So we're reinstating at halftime.
Yeah, I just think give her a full-time director job and hopefully drivers, and I'd rather see that.
We do have standby, drivers on standby. We do have drivers that are just doing the athletic runs. We do have drivers slotted to, when they pass their test, come in and just come in every morning like a building sub and sub a route. So we certainly have that as well that we're working through.
You need a CDL license to drive a minibus?
You need a
minibus.
CDL for the minibuses in the state of Maine,
Not the vans.
right? But not the
But not the vans. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So our next item on our agenda is a board goals discussion. Josh had a number of questions that he submitted for last meeting, but they were after the deadline. So we're going to take some time tonight and go over answering those questions.
Okay. And for time purposes, I will read the question and I can go through the answer, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Does that work for everybody? Okay. So the first question was this was Pathways to Success. Where are we on the trajectory of achieving 2026 goals in reading and math? So a couple of parts to that. The first part is that we have the goal was regarding the NWEA through year and the benchmark assessment goals. So a couple things. The through year for NWEA is done in the spring, and the scores are related to us or given to us in the summer. Those were presented to you already for this past year. We're not going to have those scores again until the summer of next year. So that's one thing. And that through year assessment is measuring grade level proficiency. So that will happen at that point in time. So we will not have that test again until the spring with the scores coming out in the summer. So for the benchmark assessment piece, I provided at the update a couple weeks ago the scores that we had for last year, at the end of last year. We're completing 5 weeks of school. So the benchmark assessment won't be done again from spring until right prior to report cards, which is in November. So that is the piece on that. The other thing is that we do also take the NWEA a couple of times a year. That is not the through year. And that gives you a RIT score. And the RIT score does not give you grade level proficiency. It gives you a score of a norms reference score. So you're looking at how a student is doing and performing against the norm or the norms group. So it is a different score than a grade level proficiency score. So we'll have all of those. It's just those measures come in at different times. Same thing with math.
Can I ask a clarifying question on the pathways to success? Are you referring to the data that was shared by Dr. Swiger?
I'm referring to that data and also the data that I presented at the board meeting when we talked about board goals.
That may have been a meeting that you were not at.
No, he was there. Yes, he was there. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everybody, I believe, he was 60 now, so 45.
That was for district, right? Not building, not grade. I mean, I was hoping that we would get it broken down by building and grade, but if that's not what you're presenting, then I understand. I just wanted to clarify that's the case.
Well, I was responding to the way that the goal was written, and it was not written by school or by grade. So the next part of the question was, what kind of variance do you see between the buildings and the grade levels, and how do you explain the variance? And what is the plan for remediating the variances? So what we have seen when you take a closer look at the grade levels is that you do see a pretty close K1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. As Dr. Swiger presented, when you get to 6, 7, and 8, you do see a dip in the reading scores and the math scores. And so some of that variance, and there's a lot of factors that go into why we see those variances. We took a closer look at the curriculum. We adopted a new math curriculum. We put math coaches primarily, we took a math coach that was at the elementary level and had them go up to support as the teachers are using the new math program. There's professional development that goes along with the program. There's professional development that goes along with the math coach, who's also going to be there. Let me see. As far as the literacy piece, we have they built in more time at the 6th grade level for writing. So not only do they have a reading block, but they also have a writing block, and that's new this year. And they're also working on some across the content area, reading and writing. So they're doing interdisciplinary books that they're going to be able to use and plan for across all parts of the grade level, meaning the different disciplines. So that the hope with that and the belief with that is that is going to really immerse the students in a whole activity with that. Let me see. Regarding the different BAS benchmarks, Heinemann versus Noble, the question is, Noble moves the kindergarten up 2 levels, but 1st grade only moves up 1 level. And why aren't we expecting the 1st grade to move up 2 as well? What I can say is, if you've seen the books for very beginner readers, there's 1 or 2 or 3 words per page. And as you look and as you go up to the different levels, there's more written work or more written print on there. There's more print. So we bumped the kindergarten up because the books, you can get through those books quicker because they have less text. And when you're looking at the higher levels, the text becomes more complex, even at the 1st grade level. Additionally, when you look at the Heinemann levels, that is an independent level. So an I would be an independent level. When you look at what we are expecting, we expect it at an independent level, which is different than instructional. Sometimes instructional can go up a couple more or go down a couple more, but independent level is really where you want to measure the student, not just where the teacher's instructing, because the teacher is scaffolding and supporting that student. The independent level is where the student can successfully read that text independently. So that's the difference. So we are expecting an independent level. So while it may only look like it's 1 level, it's an independent level. So that is the justification for that. What evidence do we have that supports our graduation rate is at the top 25 at the state? We have a couple of documents that Principal Dufort organized for us, and I do have those, and we can hand those out. But we just try to be conscious of the time. So this is from a U.S. News. It doesn't say U.S. News on it, so I wanted to give that caveat. The first document that's going out is for a small font, is for schools that are higher than 700 students. Thank you. Yeah. So the small font, all the schools in the state. And the larger font, let me make sure. I want to make sure that I'm saying that right, since we didn't label it.
This is the one that's off school.
Yeah. Yes, the large font is all the schools in the state. The small font is the schools that have 700 or more students. And as you can see the ranking of Noble. Wait.
There's no headings on these. Can you write what each one is again?
So the larger font
Is the order of all the schools in the state of Maine, from the 100% all the way to the
somewhere.
lower percent.
Oh, U.S. News. Smaller font document are those high schools with 700 students or more.
Same source.
Well, same source.
Wait, yes, same source.
Yeah, this is just a different order. It's put up basically in order of the most to the least kids.
And is this the 25 year graduation 2025? Thank you. And that third column on the big font one, that is regards to 12 enrollment, or is that like?
There he is back there.
Sorry, 9 through 12 enrollment is the third column. If it's yes, if the saying page like why after year and
Yeah, because we have 950
9 through 20 and enrollment next follow. Thank you.
Okay, and we have another handout, and this question, again, we're just trying to be succinct with time. The question was about retention rate. We said we had approximately 280 students last year, 280 staff last year, 269.7 this year. So we just, as this just explains some of how we did the retention rate. So having some paper and gave you a little copy.
Tiny.
Yes.
This, I think, was the request because Josh, you had asked for raw numbers, and we just were like, okay, we're just going to go with what last year's 24-25 is 280 positions. There was a RIF of 33 positions. So that gives us 247 positions that were by the end of the year, 247 positions. We take the 23 who either resigned or retired for 224. Then coming forward is a different story, right? Because then we add. So if we didn't want to confuse it, we're just start. So the 24-25 retention's there, and then we'll look at 25-26 at the end of 26.
Sure.
Then how the next question is still about resources. How was the efficacy of these mentor programs determined? And where is the supporting data and when will we be able to receive it? So a couple of things on that. We have State of Maine requires a mentorship program for all schools, for all staff that have conditional certifications. So we follow the state program, and so our staff that are mentors are trained to be mentors. And we have Elise Galusha, who is our assistant principal at Knowlton School, and she helps oversee the mentors along with Dr. Schweiger. So there's a couple of things that we do, several things that we do during the course of the school year for mentors, for our mentorship program. And there's classroom visits, like the mentor will go into the mentee's room, they'll do an observation, they'll talk about it. Then there's monthly meetings, weekly check-ins. So there's a myriad of things that we do for that. How we have made this more robust moving ahead is that we are having Dr. Schweiger and Elise Galusha spend more time with the mentors throughout the school year to just make sure that everybody has the kind of support that they need. So that piece is there. We will do a survey at the end of this year to provide data to you on the efficacy of all of that and how that's going. So like I said, most of these goals, and I should have prefaced by saying most of our goals are through 26. So like some of what we're giving you is baseline information, like the retention rate was for the 24-25 school year. We haven't done that this year. We'll do that at the end of this year. So again, we will give you we'll go through a survey and go get that information to you when we do that.
Andrew, you said Maine requires mentorship for conditional certifications. Can you just elaborate on that and how many we have in this district?
You have to pull the spreadsheet and count.
I got let's give me an example.
New teacher has a conditional certificate.
Okay, so all new teachers have conditional certifications. Non-tenured, is that what conditional certificate is?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
So our tenure in the state of Maine is different than a tenure in New Hampshire. So
was it a new first year teacher and then other things?
First and second year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that based to the group?
Yeah, typically it's first and second year. And if there is a person who's coming into the system who is professionally certified, but would like to have a mentor, we provide that as well. But anybody that is provisionally or conditionally certified must have a mentor.
And they're mentored until they're no longer on a conditional certificate.
Been mentored for the first two years. Yeah. Yes.
And then is it typical after the first 2 years, then they're no longer on a conditional certificate?
Typically, yeah.
I'm saying, yes.
Definitely there are some exceptions to those, but typically.
Always are. Thank you.
The next questions relate to facilities. So the Harriman study, when is that coming out? Have we identified and reported to the board the 5 key areas? All of the facilities questions we're going to be answering through the facilities committee meetings that we're starting next week. The special ed audit. Melissa, do you want to talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
So we had our audit in April last year, got our results back end of June. The way the IELTS system works, this is probably come back at either level 1, 2, 3, or 4. Slightly competitive. So my first question was, have you got 1? Because that's the best. And the state response was, we don't, because you have to literally have not a single error anywhere. Not a box can be unchecked to get mine. So they said it's never happened with the bug. So we came down to 2. We have a couple of procedural things that we just need to make sure we clean up, and also collaborating with CDS. The way the audit works is you have to present an IEP for every disability category, like various situations. That means some of the IEPs that we present are not documents that we create because we might have a limited number of students to choose from. So certainly you're probably thinking about, okay, as we're getting paperwork in CDS from other schools and agencies, how we're making sure that we edit and correct that in ways that they need to know. We've had our first training with the DOE follow-up from the it was very positive. I think the department as a whole is feeling pretty proud of the work they've done. And like a sheep.
So, Melissa, one of the questions has been, can they see the audit in all of its glory?
No, is the short answer, because it has very specific, what they do is come in and they pull about 20 student files specifically, and then they give us very specific student feedback based on this disability, this school, this grade. I don't have a good way of de-identifying that information. Like, just taking a log, you would still be able to walk into a school and go, it's that kid. And so I don't have a great way of pulling information out of it and not just still have it be relevant, or like to have the information in there that would be more than just a choice of one sentence. I can say some of the feedback we got was like, oh, you guys forgot to check a box right then, or when you are completing this evaluation, don't forget that doctor's first diagnosis for 2014, you got to stick it back in there. So it was really very specific, so like a Brad scales suggest.
And is there an action plan that comes with that in terms of things that you need to address?
Yeah. So what happens is that here are the things that we need to act for student-specific files. They want to see those errors corrected. And then they also want you to submit additional examples of where you systemically made those corrections and show that it's not just that you fixed it in one spot and like pat yourself on the back. You got to show that you're making progress from it. So we are in that process as well underway. We're sending paperwork out to the state as we go through. And then we did our follow-up training. We do a self-audit this year and submit those results back to the state. So we keep plugging away. Are there any broad questions? It's really tricky because this is an audit where they really pull so specific. It's hard for me to...
I would assume the action plan is not student specific.
It is, because they want the action plan says, like, on this student's IEP, there was this error and we want correction.
So the state does an audit that they don't want a board to see. That just seems weird, right? I mean, because the board is the governing body of a school district, that the state would require an audit that the board can't see. That just strikes me as odd. It strikes me as odd. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's 100% true.
I don't think they looked at it with the perspective of like, how does this, they see it as like a department audit and training opportunity. I don't think they come in and see it as information that would be shared out.
So, and if there were concerns, what does a level 3 or level 4 look like in terms of the expectations?
So level 2 means we make some corrections, we do a little bit of training this year, and then we're good for 4 years. So a level 3, they come back, they do some further audits partway through the year. You have to do a little more targeted training with them. And it's all about the number of findings you have. And so depending on the number of findings, you get leveled into one of those systems. Level 3, you get audited again in 3 years, and you have to attend more as a DOE management training. Level 4 is pretty intense intervention. Like they're here, I think, every 2 to 3 months, doing much more rigorous training.
And so I guess the question I will have, and we'll talk about it, Melissa, is can we get a letter from the state that actually just is more broad that says, this is what the overall findings in terms of like year 11-2, and these are positive things, and maybe there's some suggestions, but we can talk about that, see if there's something that can come. So
we just have a
Speaking to the mic.
now when I'm talking to her, hey, do we have just an area of broad concern that you can share? Or Or is it all just nitpicky?
It's really like you forgot to check this box on an gratuitous, and you gave house statements for every area except you forgot your house statement for this adding goal. So it really is pretty.
So it is a nitpicky type of an audit rather than an overall overview of what.
I'm sure that they must have reviewed programs, like programmatically, do we provide all of the things that we need to provide?
Provide, like, here are the staff schedules, and they compare service rates to clock schedules, student schedules to say, are you in fact showing evidence that you're doing what you say you're doing? And the answer is yes. And are you complying with guidelines? If then regulations, and the answer is yes. And then they get down to that very nitty-gritty, like I said, did you include this specific evaluation information? Or did you make sure that you checked this specific box? Or it might be that we had 8 academic goals on the IEP and we missed a citation on one of them. So there were raw about. I do have to stand forward to say that the special education staff have been fantastic. I think should feel really proud about coming out at this achievement level. I think typically the kind of district has been monitored more frequently than a 4-year cycle. And so they worked really hard last year to just get us to a point where we felt prepared. They were highly engaged in the audit process. Chief manager came in and that was not at our staff by side by side, really used it as professional development. And it was really great for me to be able to use it to calibrate some training for this year. And what we're doing is still one. So it really was, and it's sometimes as negative as audit can sound, I think it really was beneficial.
Way to look at it. Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, and yeah.
Thank you very much for staying this late.
The next topic, the next questions relate to the school safety section. When were the 3 full security assessments completed, and what were the results of the security assessment at the first entry for each of the schools, and why weren't the other 5 buildings completed this past year? The 3 security assessment audits occurred in late spring of 24. We did not receive the written documentation for a couple months after that. And just to give a quick summary of some of the areas that were noted as strengths and some of the areas that to look at, I will list those now. However, similar to what Melissa said, there are parts to that are specific to schools that I'm going to leave out because it's a safety about the school. So overall, when you look at the 3 reports from those 3 schools, the strengths were that we had ALICE training and the staff is using ALICE as part of the safety plan and safety workshop or practice with students, that we use Crisis Go, that we have a very specific way that we use Crisis Go, and that our first responders are part of the Crisis Go training, and they have Crisis Go on their phones as well, that our bus radio systems have interoperability with our local police departments, that we have safety plans in place. We have Stop the Bleed kits in several of the schools, and that we have district SROs. Some areas that were noted to look more closely at is that some of the outdoor signs were fading in some of those school areas, and some of the vegetation was growing close to windows. So to make sure that some of that was cleared out, just so we get a good visual. And some of the classrooms had lit blinds needed repairing, or some did not have blinds. So those are the more general areas to look at. So one of the reasons why that we still have those 5 schools not looked at is because we're on a list, and it's a long list. So the thought process is that because our school resource officers were participating in these events, the reporting, and they walked around and they talked with the group that did these assessments, that we may be able to get something done locally with our SROs who went through the process
with this group. So it wouldn't necessarily be the same group, but we would still be looking at everything because we have the reports. So we can mirror what was looked at based on the reports that we have.
So that's that. Yeah. So this is a waiting list too.
There's a lot of, yes.
Okay.
And originally we needed to do this because we were looking at getting a grant to fob some of the buildings. So they came in to do, the access points as well as looking at the overall, the envelope of the school, the entryways and everything like that.
And Andrea, is that your intention to use what you just said, the reports with our current estimates to do that this year?
Yes.
The other 5 buildings?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
And then the next question was related to the wellness block at the middle school, when it was the middle school. And a couple of pieces again on this one. When we moved to the reconfiguration, there was a conscious decision to make the 5th and 6th grade similar to the K4. So mostly an elementary schedule. So the timing is an elementary schedule. So they do have the wellness block, but it's similar to more similarly related to what a recess would look like at the elementary level. So the data that was collected last year was informal, and it was done by the students because the staff was trying to gauge how the students were feeling before and after. It wasn't to be a huge survey going to the board for, analysis. It was more to drive the practice in the school and what's going on in the school level. But moving ahead, the goal is to keep it a more elementary based K6 experience, pre-K 6 experience with a recess, or they may still call it the wellness block, but it is more similarly related to what we're doing at the early elementary levels. So then the next section is, then let's see, the main integrated health survey results. So we took the test. Our students took the survey. They could opt out of the survey, and we have not received those results. I believe I mentioned that when we presented the last time. They don't come out until the winter. So once we have those results, we'll provide that information, but we don't have them quite yet.
Yeah, and we can get one of the women from the Choose to Be Healthy Coalition comes to the board meetings and is happy to come and do a presentation on the Noble board, which is great. Sally, man.
Get the results. That's great. I'm happy to read.
Yeah. You can, you'll be able to get them, but then she can come in and kind of provide some context.
And under the section of community engagement, there was a question about when the drop-in sessions occurred. So they occurred in Berwick and North Berwick at the libraries in April and May. We're going to go to Lebanon in November. We're going to the historical society meeting in November. And the website design. So this was another question, is what is our trajectory of having that done? And due to the fact that we did have the reconfiguration, all of the efforts went into the reconfiguration. So some of that web design did not occur as quickly as it was listed as a goal. So the goal now would be to make sure that it is completed at the end of the school year, or by June of this school year. That's really the goal. I think those were the questions.
Hey, come.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on, an employment discussion.
We have a resignation of a teacher at the middle school, Norwood Middle School. Emily Loisel has tendered her resignation. And so we need a motion.
Motion to accept.
Have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
I'll second. Is there a particular reason?
That's always We have a motion to accept, and it's been seconded to accept the resignation of Emily Loisel. All those in favor? Opposed? And the motion's been made and passed.
Thank you. That's the only employment update at this point in time.
Thank you. How about a superintendent update?
Well, we'll give you good news from Hussey School.
Yeah.
So as we know, Hussey School has a long history of issues with parking. All of the schools face this, right? But parking with pickup, and as I alluded to earlier today, because we had 2 of the 4 buses that were not running last week and the week before, there were over 50% of the students that were being picked up. So cars were all the way backed up onto 236, and they were coming in from every direction. If you were to look at an aerial shot of it, you would see cars in every, Pine Hill, every direction, Town Road, Berwick Road, 236, Blackberry Hill. So Officer Fogg, who's our SRO here at the intermediate school, has been working with Hussey School this week, and they've been observing, and also working with families and parents. We sent a letter out last Friday, with Captain Locke, and I wrote a letter asking parents to not come. What was happening is we had some parents showing up over an hour early, and what that started to do every single day. And when they don't mind, because they're catching up on reading or they're catching up on other things that they were doing. So we really asked for some cooperation in not getting to the school until 3:00. So that the beginning of this week, we worked through some of that. And then Officer Fogg was down there for a couple of days, really helping with the getting more parents in the loop so that we could dismiss, because they do pick my kid, which is a safety measure, which is a very positive safety measure, but they were only able to do 10 cars at a time. And when you're looking at 186 cars, that's a significant amount of time. So we added another part where the cars can come in and turn around. So we're getting double the cars in, and it's moving quickly. So today we heard that it was 18 minutes and 45 seconds to get through everything. So it shaved off over 15 minutes. And the furthest the line was to the field.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So we're very excited.
Pretty excited when I saw it.
Yeah, I've done it. It does. It does. Yes, good idea.
My husband went to pick up the other day and he was like, there's 2 rows of cars now. It's so fast.
It's I think it'll get even faster. Plus, people are getting to know the system and stuff. And parents have been great. Like, really, truly, they've been great.
It's also really well thought out. Like they have a whole system for like you leave your door open until your kid's in the car.
Yeah.
Like there's absolutely no way that a kid could be anywhere you don't want them to be. It's really like, well,
Yeah, it's good. It's good. So that's that update. And then for next week, just wanted to mention that we had a policy committee meeting tonight that we needed to postpone because we had the executive sessions. So the policy committee, we would like to start that from 6 to 6:30, which would mean that we would bump the facilities meeting to start at 6:30. And we just want to make sure that that's okay with everybody.
Okay, moving on to other.
Let's see. Okay, I have just a discussion piece for the board to see what your guys' thoughts on this are. So I think we know, like, we don't get very much traffic in our inbox from our school board. You two might have a different experience because you're the chairs, but in general, we don't get a lot of feedback from like teachers, bus drivers, yada, yada, to our personal or to our school board accounts. And without that feedback, it's very hard for us to really know where we need to be focusing our attention. We obviously have our superintendents, which are great, but I think I'm curious about the idea of having a no reply, anonymous, like email address that anyone that works for the district could use to just send a no reply message to the board as a whole. So if they had any feedback for us, because there was a bus driver who was pretty disgruntled that was kind of taking to Facebook, but I hadn't received an email because I think then they kind of look at it as like, oh, this is now an official thing and I've made a statement to the school board, So I'm wondering if you guys think there would be any value to an anonymous type of conversation. I wouldn't suggest it for obviously students or anything like that. But whereas we obviously trust that the staff and everyone is going to be respectful and all that, I would wonder if you guys think that would be helpful at all. And it would bridge the gap a little between our communities for us to be more approachable.
I'm not sure I understand the mechanics of how that would work.
So they would all get a login credential or an email address. It could be, feedback@msat60.com. They could all sign in through the same email address and send out an anonymous message, and it would be a do not reply. So it's not a back and forth conversation. It's more of a, here's an idea, or here's something I'm observing, where it just lowers that threshold of like feeling like you have to create a formal thing or taking time out of their day to come here for the meetings at night. Just a thought.
Any other thoughts on that?
I would just be concerned because what I've been reading is that there is a chain of command type of thing. So if this driver has a problem, they need to go to their director, and that director goes to, the superintendent or the principal. So I think that sort of cuts out, there's nothing as a board personally we can do about, they should be going through the chain of command. So if a teacher has a problem, they need to go to their principal, and that principal needs to go to the superintendent. So and then if that doesn't get resolved, I've been reading a lot of policies. If that doesn't get resolved, it goes to the board if the superintendent. So I feel like cutting out that chain of command. So then, and that's how I just feel, because they're going to come to that email and bypass the chain of command that they need to do. That's just my feeling on it. That's a good idea, though, but that's a possibility.
Yeah, I would echo that. I think I've said it before, when I first started as a board member, I was like, so all your problems, everyone come here. And then I was like, okay, no, there's a chain of command, and to empower people to use it appropriately and educate them. I think one of my concerns with that, I do like the idea of this and definitely would love more conversation about it. I think one of my concerns would be if someone came with an actual problem, that there's no way to then respond to that person and address that issue. And I don't want to leave like things hanging out in the wind that might be person specific instead of process specific. Just, I'm sorry.
Because it used to be this way doesn't mean it has to be this way. But when I was a teacher,
You guys speak loud.
great.
I'm just telling you.
And that mic on, it doesn't.
Can't. It's
When I was a teacher,
Do you anymore? Okay.
it was very rare that we talked to anybody but the principal. And then very rare that we went any further. I'm good. And they are wonderful. So what I'm trying to say is that I think I spoke to school board members as a teacher twice in my life. That was when I was negotiating. So I just don't know. And Audrey, Sue, you speak more to this, but I think it's breaking down that relationship. We don't want to be stepping in between the board and the administration. We don't want to be stepping in any way between the board and the principals, or the board and the union. I think it's not. I know that you care about them, and everybody does, but I just think they have a route. We have a route we go. It's a good route. If it doesn't work, they can go to the next level, and eventually they can come to the board if they need to. But I think we want to kind of keep our distance, because it's very hard to make hard decisions as a board if you're buddies with the people you're cutting their throats on. And I don't mean that literally, but it's very challenging to separate yourself when you're buddies or when you're part of that group. So much as I appreciate you caring, I think it's unwise.
Allie, did you have a particular sort of type of feedback that you're looking for? Because if you're looking for suggestions, ideas, thoughts, that's more, it's a thing versus not versus complaints. That's more destructive, more ingraining us in their culture, things like that. I think it is a bit of a slippery slope. Because if you open it up to one thing, other stuff comes in. But I recognize and I appreciate, and I think that staff would appreciate that thought. It's just figuring out how to actually, the machinations of it are not that simple. Because even coming into the school, sometimes you're like, I don't want you to be afraid of me. You know what I mean? Like, I want to feel like part of the community, and I hope that's how they feel. So,
Will say, I was never afraid of the board or the superintendent or the principals. I just knew that they had a job to do, and my interfering with it was not necessarily something that I needed to be doing. It was just the way it was done. Maybe we need to change it. I don't know, but that's the way it was done, and it seemed to work pretty well. But those board members, they control our payroll, you know.
Yes.
I've always found that.
Any other thoughts? Dodge?
I have three things. I'll try to be quick. Just on August 7th,
Excuse me. We just wrap up this last item.
oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was, I apologize. I didn't mean to jump in there.
Have we concluded? Okay, let's take it away.
Thank you. On August 7th, I moved to have an executive session scheduled to discuss central office administration compensation. It has been nearly 2 months. Do we have the executive session on the calendar?
Do not. And I'm glad you brought this up because initially I made a mistake. I was confused about what your purpose was, not to review compensation. It was, in my mind, were you going to have a performance issue? It was unclear to me. So, and to have an executive session, you have to have, according to the policy BED, you have to have a policy, you have to have a reason for going into executive session. Okay, so we finally met on the 18th of September. And I understood then you were looking for discussion around the process of how we came to the current contract. And we were going to use that as a springboard to have discussion looking to the future for future negotiations. Okay, so, going on then and looking at the law that's around executive sessions, process did not fall into that purview. Process is more of a topic that you would have an open discussion. So my question to you is, well, first of all, there's a motion that's been made and passed. Do we need to rescind that motion and take a different tack? One of them could potentially be you're drafting a suggested policy on how the contract is managed for the administrators, or the other tack would be to have it in an open forum as part of our agenda, not behind closed doors for an executive session.
I think so. The executive session is an executive session under this, and by law, like compensation is one of the reasons to go into executive session. I'd be interested if a board member can tell me how that came to be on June 5th, how we were presented with the motion.
Audra, I'm going to turn to you for that because...
Yeah, I'm asking board members. I am asking board.
Okay.
Was it Ken?
Right. So, all right, you two are here. Yeah.
You weren't there.
I'm confused about your question.
So there was a so trying to think public session, right? There was, how I asked for a grid for each negotiated group, right? To see what their anticipated cost of the district would be, right? It'd be insurance and salaries and all those, right? So we did that for the teacher's contract because that was negotiated. We did that with support staff because that was negotiated. And we did that for transportation because that was negotiated. And we did have executive sessions to discuss all of those progress when it came to those contracts. So seeing the final numbers, right, we actually saw the costs of those, correct? And so, and when we got those, there was no motions to accept those because those contracts had been ratified, right? On June 5th, it was done differently. June 11th, I'm sorry, thank you for the correction of date. June 11th, it was done differently. The same sheet was handed to us, but then a motion to approve the sheet was done. And I didn't understand what the motion to approve was. I had never seen those numbers. I had no information on where those numbers came from. And so I'm asking the board, do you know where those numbers came from? Because they are not in the contract. If you read the contract, those numbers are not in the contract. So that's why I wanted to go into executive session, because I wanted to get to the bottom and figure out where did it come from.
And picture it off the top of my head. I'd have to go back through and
So
Yeah, and
looking at the question was.
all of the other contracts that we deal with are negotiated by subcommittees from
Absolutely. Yep.
my understanding, and I wasn't the board chair at that time, it's my understanding that administrator contracts are negotiated between the board chair and the administrative staff. Now, I would have to turn to Audra and say, is that what happened? Because I wasn't involved.
Yeah, none of us were involved.
So what I will say is, and this goes for the superintendency, historically in this district, that when a superintendent is hired, the contract is negotiated between the superintendent and the chair of the board with input from the board. So that contract then carries through. What you received this past spring, when we talked about the salary, we did share a grid with you so that you could have the total cost, because we were trying to honor the way that you asked for it to be done for other departments or other, like the teachers, the group of teachers or the group of educational technicians. This microphone's out as well. So we presented the information that way. Sue did a nice job explaining it. We asked if there were any questions. At no time was there not even a question about the salary piece for that portion. So thank you. So that's how that went. That's how that part of the process went through.
But if I remember right, there was a question of like, wait, what are we voting on? What are we doing? What do we need to vote for? Right? In every other contract that we've done, we have discussed what was in that, the reason, everything in executive session, properly so.
I don't think so, though. I think that those contracts were negotiated by a subgroup of this board. And then the final negotiated document was brought before the board. I don't think we all were in executive session.
I would love to see that documentation, because there is no documentation. Like, I've read the contract for of the 10 central office administrators that we have their contracts of. One, we haven't even seen the contract of, to my knowledge. I haven't in 2 years I've been on the board.
What is that?
Business administrator. And actually there's another one, maintenance. I haven't seen maintenance supervision contract either. But I haven't, there's no monetary number on those contracts.
Are there monetary numbers on any of the contracts?
Yes, there are salary schedules for all other contracts,
Salary schedule.
which are the monetary, that is the negotiated monetary changes.
Because then it has their step on it.
Right.
Because they're unionized.
Because it's
Well, administrators aren't unionized, but they have monetary numbers in their contract.
I have three.
Yeah, that's my understanding, correct. Then
The only people that are not unionized are the central office.
I would like to know where those numbers came from. Like, where's the documentation that we would have seen it, that we would have discussed it as a board at some point, those numbers, and we did not. And I'm wondering, why didn't we? And then it was just a vote. And I was like, wait, we've never voted on this stuff before. Where's it from? And that's why I have all these questions. And I meant to do it in executive session, honestly, because I'm just trying to find out what happened and then say, okay, so what is actually our process? Because it's becoming clear to me that we really, as a board, don't know that process.
We did. That was discussed at a board meeting and we gave Nancy direction.
Well, it's part of it's
What board meeting? What board?
part of the budget.
Good.
Right. It's part of the budget. That's the only.
I don't off the top of my head know that, but yeah, I do remember those conversations with Nancy asking for guidance in her meeting.
in a regular meeting or?
But the other part of that is it's part of the budget process. So when you're going over the budgets, that piece is also in there. Like, if any increases in salary, it's in the central office lines. It shows those percentages there. So maybe it's
What doctors? Yeah, so the numbers are there too.
Well, and not only that, but that document very clearly showed the full package, so to speak, of what you were asking for the other for the other routes. Like it talked about the insurance, it talked about the salary, it talked about some of the other benefits, like, like dental. So all of that was listed. And again, like that was presented and discussed and voted that night.
So is your issue that salary schedule and benefits is not attached to the actual verbal contract?
No, the benefits is actually an addendum in the top left-hand corner. It's a different font. If it's an addendum, I don't know where it came from, but it was alluded to as an addendum. It says that the central office administration received the same benefits package, right, as the administrative contract, right? But benefits are different than salary. And there is no language in the district office administrative contracts about salary. And so I'm wondering where those percentages came from. That's the question. Where did those percentages come from?
I'm assuming they came from discussions between the board chair, who got input from the board, and then negotiated directly with the.
And that was not presented at all to the full board, nor discussed at any time prior to.
I think there's two separate parts. I think I'm going to try to see if I get this.
Right.
I think what Kate was talking about is the initial contract that was issued, that's issued. And I think what you're referring to is what happened last summer. Right? Like with the document.
If you have, like, I've read your contract, right? In your contract, there is no mention of salary. There's salary, but there's no mention of any change, any percentage escalator or anything like that in your contract. True?
Every year, the salary is negotiated
By the
by the board.
board of which.
You were here.
What? When? Like, when was that an agenda item? Do you remember the agenda item? Financial summary.
I can look at it. I can look at it.
Yeah, that was the agenda item, financial summary.
Excuse me.
Makes sense?
11.
Your salary, just because I remember it, read it, as a figure on it, yours and Sue's both have a figure on it of what you get paid, and your salary, your contract runs for 3 years. You would need to have some kind of a escalator or some kind of, like the administrative salary has, where their raises are listed as an addendum in the back of their salary schedules. There was no addendum to support an increase in salary, nor was there any escalator in the contract to support an increase in salary. So the question comes again, how did we end up? And I asked the question, are we voting on salary increases or are we voting on adding numbers? And it was said, we're voting on the calculation. And I said, fine, then let's vote. I have proof. I'm not going to argue about calculations of numbers on a computer. I couldn't do it. There were none of us, or many of us, or three of us anyway, did not realize that we were voting on the escalation of your salaries for you and Denise. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to mention names. Business, and the facilities director. I don't think we've seen his contract. Nobody saw your contracts when you, for the first time, when you signed it for 27. What was it? We sat in the meeting. I remember I was not on the board, but you were out. You had an emergency. You couldn't find yours, and you voted on them anyway. So I think had we seen the contract, or had the board seen the contracts and noticed it then, it could have been fixed. But I think there was a problem, and I think we manipulated around the problem to try to make sure that you got, justifiably so, an increase in salary. Every year, everybody gets a salary increase, but the way it was done might have not been as open, quite frankly, as open as it could have been. Well, I would say I was not here for that evening. No, you was not there. No, so I'm not going back to this because I think Will say last October, I believe it was, there was a request to Denise, our business office, to see all contracts. Mine was a portion of that. Mine came through with that. So you have had an opportunity to see that contract. So that was that piece. And every year we do talk about salary increase. If you are, as a board, if you want to direct us to have Connor look at our contracts to make them more aligned with what you're saying about a clause, we can certainly do that. Our intention is not to make our contracts slide in. That's certainly not what we're trying to do. So if you wanted to align more similarly to what other our other contracts in the district look like, we can do that. It may not be Connor, it may be Greg M, who handles our budgetary information. We can do that. So, this was a 3-year contract. Do you normally have a 3-year contract, or do you usually have annual contracts? What do you
So 3-year contracts, but they're renewed annually. So they continue unless you vote not to renew, it would then be a 2-year contract or 1 year. So
What about me against?
it's a rolling contract, Nancy. We have 3-year contracts because one of the things about being a non-unionized person is that there's really no safety net for people that are doing this work. So it's a 3-year contract. At the end of the first year, it will roll over. So instead of it ending in 27, 28, it would be 28, 29, if all goes well.
Because in the contract, by misrepresenting it, I so apologize. If the board was wishing not to renew, they would have to notify you by, it's like February or something like that. It's written into the contract. So,
And there's a
do notice all it. So that's what you're like rolling, right? It's continuing unless either party decides to part ways, the superintendent or the board.
So that's why it does come up annually. Otherwise,
So what I'm understanding is the percentages that were represented, and I'm talking not benefits. Benefits are already that's set.
Mm-hmm.
Not salary. Those percentages were negotiated essentially with our previous chair, Nancy Newbert. I was not informed. I can say that as a board, I was not informed at any time during that process that A, it was happening, B, what the discussions were, and why those discussions were happening. All that, like I was kept out, and I just want to be sure that does not happen again.
We can rectify. I don't recall it that way. I recall that Nancy asking for direction and us talking about what were the increases going to the other unions and how.
I do believe we talked about that in a budgetary session, but I'm not sure that it may have been as clear. Apparently, you know what I'm saying? So I think we can certainly be more clear.
So I've sat through 2 of those. Mackley.
Sorry. Yeah.
I sat through 2 of those. It was not clear the first year, and it was supposed to be processed in July because of your emergency.
Speak into the mic.
So
I know. Pull the mic. I'm on. Look.
And like,
sorry.
Didn't mean to help our audience members. It's tough to hear out there. I get it.
I did. Last year, I abstained because the discussion was not the discussion that we had when we had talked about prior negotiations. You know, when we had discussed those things, I was expecting the same process, and it was not the same process, and I abstained. So it was not clear. It was not clear. And the first year, it truly was not clear. So that's 2 years in a row. Not super familiar with contracts, but it truly was not clear.
So we need to formalize it so that there are some clear.
I think I think this goes back to the training that we're talking about now for new members, like having it more specifically. Well, hopefully what Denise explains during the budget workshops includes that piece, and we can maybe explicitly list that as a piece we need to know prior to going into budget season this year, because I feel like from one year to the next, well, it's technically part of the budget, right?
Sorry.
Well, technically it's part of the budget process. Yeah, we have to approve it as a, so having Denise explicitly just review that, here are the levels, here's who you're going to deal with. You're going to deal with the negotiation team for teachers and unionized workers. You're going to deal with your board for non-union workers in the district. Like, you guys have like such a wealth of knowledge from being here for so long that I feel like it's hard to remember what it's like to be on year one. So things can get just slipped through the cracks, not nefariously, but because of the nature of how much work there's to be done. And it sounds like that's what happened. And I would honestly be agreeing with you guys in the fact that I didn't realize that it was typical for a board to have input in that discussion. I assumed it was just a chair thing, and just not having the complete clarity on that could cause like exactly what's happening here. So more clarity.
Okay, I would completely disagree because when
I'm
we
agreeing with you.
okay. Comedy hours.
Methodology that was talking about.
Okay. So when we talked about contracts and we talked about negotiation, we had a very long discussion, right? Did we not?
Yeah.
Yes. All of those. Not specific, but all of those that were being negotiated. There was a long discussion. So it was expecting the same process, and there was not that same process. So it probably should be normalized if we're going to discuss, yeses and nos, then it should be yeses and nos. It should be the same across the board. It should be normalized, not have it one way for teachers and a different way for others, and and the same and different, absolutely different for administration. It should be normalized. Okay. I'll go with that.
We can work on creating something to more normalize it. We'll look different because there's no union. So that negotiation is different, but we can certainly draft something to bring forward so that you can have a clearer part of the process, see the process.
Yes.
The facilities for the part of the central office contract or not? Was the facilities director part of the central office?
So he stands outside of any union. So basically, we kind of like cover anybody that doesn't fall under a union contract.
When do we approve his salary or his?
It sounds like we'll be doing it at the same time frame.
Have we done it?
Typically,
It's in the budget.
It's in the budget process. Same thing. So, but we'll step it aside and have it be more clear. Yeah.
There's a question there. What do you?
No, I'm just thinking how much, given that the budget is so challenging to actually know who's being paid what because of grant money and all of the other stuff, just makes it a little bit, maybe we should have it would be so much easier if everybody had been on the administrative contract, then we'd have known.
Something that we can't be unionized. It's not a part of it's just not a process that we can do.
But to that point, when we go through the budget documents, when we get the big binder and go through each section, the facility section is there. We can highlight that portion because it does clump out salaries. Yes. The teachers, regular instruction, special ed instruction, it goes through everything. So we can certainly do that as well.
His salary is right there, clear.
We don't have, and I'm just curious, and it really is. We voted on a lump sum, but we don't know how it was distributed. So on that, for the sum that you gave us, we approved that chart. So it was not distributed to the superintendent, the assistant superintendent, or to the business. So there's no way of knowing what. And so I said, the right thing was just kind of very strange because that's not, if I were doing a contract personally, that is not how I would want my contract to be done. But that wasn't a contract. That was the monetary discussion. And we presented it similarly, or attempted to do so, similarly to what was requested when the other contracts came forward to look at the total cost for that group to the budget. So that's the attempt. It was to honor the request that the board had, that it be presented that way. I can tell you what those are right now. I'm fine telling you. I mean, if that is going to help, I got to get a new contract. So I'll just look at the new contracts when I put up request for them. But I'm only asking for 6. No, not too good. But I think the confusion is that the other graphs were of approved contracts. The central office salary rate scale was not, and we hadn't approved. We didn't know it wasn't approved yet. That's where the confusion came. That was the proposal. And it was.
I had other things, but I feel like I just monopolize that whole thing. So if other people want to talk, by all means.
For like issue has been addressed. Yeah, we're going to be resolved.
There seems to be, there's a future, right, to discuss. So
I'm all about the future.
I know.
Oh, I mean, we can put the June 11th table minutes on the next
August 7th.
in August. Yeah, that. And we tabled the June 11th.
Okay.
And we tabled the September 4th. I keep them so I don't lose them. I think
September 4th we did.
yeah, we just did that one tonight. Gotcha. Sorry, didn't move that one. Apologies. Old version.
So yes, for our next meeting, we can put those minutes on to be moved. I don't know, were they pending approval? No, it was pending approval because we had to go back and do that. Can we at least get to the bottom of how we got to those numbers? Can we get that story? If we need to go into executive session to have that discussion of how we got to those numbers, that's great. Like who was present? When did those meetings occur? Right. And then as Nancy said, if we can get that information before the next meeting, great. We can approve it. We can move on. And then we know what the future, we know where we're moving as far as the future. I'm fine with that.
I think we've said Nancy Newbert and
It's a combination.
It is.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, discussed at the board level. I don't know it. I mean, all right, maybe not as clearly, like Sue said, as that piece. So when we brought that information, that was after a discussion. That was a proposal that was approved by the board. So I can go through the numbers with you. I mean, if that,
To me, it's not about the specific numbers. It's I'm a board member. Your contract says to negotiate with the board, and I was never involved in. I've been involved in every other contract because we talk about it in executive session.
And every union that comes here.
But we are responsible for the payroll of every employee of the district, and we did not have this conversation.
we proposed the document and there was a question that was answered and then there was a motion to approve.
If we go
That was not,
back to the meeting and look at that video, I think that we would all feel a little bit differently about how that went. It was not, but it was under a financial summary. That was the agenda item, right? It's financial summary. If we were talking about contracts and increases in compensation, then we would have had an agenda item talking about district office administration compensation. Then that would have made absolute sense. This is the increases that we are proposing for our central office administrators. Let's have a discussion on it, vote it up or down. That would have been 100% clear. We did not have that.
so let me ask you, what do you want to achieve by pointing out who did what when it's done? It's a done contract. We've discussed that it was not the ideal way for it to come forward to the board. Why are we beating a dead horse?
No, honestly, I'm delighted we actually had this discussion tonight. Right? I mean, you and I had a one-on-one conversation about it, and you couldn't answer my questions at that time. Right?
Well, my husband's dying.
Well, I know. I'm sorry. I truly that was not meant to be a hey, what? But it was. You were like, yeah. I don't know.
But
And I was like, well, I wonder if any board member knows, right? And so I'm glad we had this conversation. I truly am sorry for any embarrassment it caused. That was my whole purpose to get an executive session is not to, right? That's why we go into executive session, to have conversations that save face, right? And so it wasn't a matter of throwing someone on the bus, but like we did something as a board. We approved something as a board that we had no idea what we were actually doing. And that's the troubling part for me. And we don't want to do that. Fiscal management is one of our main responsibilities.
We had already approved the budget that had those numbers in it. That was the background that supported the budget number.
And my assumption was that those numbers were already approved, right? So I actually, what was the message to me was that there was a motion made on that financial summary sheet that had never been made on any other financial sheet. And I'm like, why was a motion made on that sheet? And so that's when I went back and I read the contract and I'm like, there is nothing in here. And that was my wait, we just approved something that's not even in a contract. Where did it come from? Like, we should all be alarmed by that.
I'm not. This is not, it's a different kind of contract. You're comparing it to a union negotiation and it's not the same thing. Okay, I don't want to do this because
I have really a good takeaway of that meeting. I certainly respect your takeaways, but I will say I had different takeaways. So I just want to make sure that we're not generalizing that some of us understood something, some of us didn't, et cetera. So I do want to just add that caveat. But so next, is that executive? I guess my question is that executive session, right? We have to make a formal, someone has to rescind a motion and yes, like, are we in agreement that executive session is coming off and that the June 11th minutes can be added to the next meeting to approve, or what are the next steps to remedy this?
Yes, we've discussed the matter. So yes, we can rescind the executive session.
Could I have a motion to do that?
So moved.
Second. A second. Sure. All those in favor of rescinding the executive session? All those opposed? And motion's passed.
You want to go with the rest of your other?
I will proceed as fast as possible. Pre-K. You and I have discussed pre-K. Well, the last correspondence was to table it until after the first semester, which would be like January, February.
I'm not sure of the exact date that the semesters end, but yes.
So my concern would be like that pre-K is a major budget item impacting a lot of people. I would think that Denise would need some sort of decision by the board well before January. I just want to make sure that the whole goal of having a pre-K discussion is I do feel like that decision was made so fast and how the process came up that there were people who were alienated. And I want to make sure that we are collecting all voices. We talked last year that this was a 1-year pilot, right? And so we actually have to have this discussion about what pre-K could look like next year. Is it going to be the same thing? We had a lot of discussion last fall about maybe doing half days, but half days would require a lot of conversation with daycares and pre-K providers in the area. Like there's a lot of pieces here. And I understand that's part of the facilities discussion, but it seems like there's so much to gather there that it would behoove the board to have a specific special meeting, so that public can share the information in kind of a collecting, so that then when we are having our facilities discussion, we are all a little bit more aware of the impact of all that. That's what I'm hoping for. I would love for the board to do that, to entertain that, within the next few weeks. I mean, obviously the sooner the better, because we're going hard and fast in facilities. I just don't see how we're going to be able to gather all the information about pre-K while at the same time talking all other facilities.
I just say something. Last week when we decided, or the last meeting, when we decided to do the facilities workshop, I guess I thought all pre-K would be included only because the whole reason we reconfigured, in my understanding, had to do with pre-K. And we had talked, and I had wanted a specific Lebanon committee, and that was part of it. But I thought we had decided as a board, let's do this facilities workshop, gather information, and then go from there. And I assumed and maybe I didn't make it clear, but I assume pre-K would be part of that discussion because I don't know how you have these discussions without talking about pre-K.
Right.
So you're not good with that plan that we talked about at the last meeting?
Workshops don't allow any public participation.
Right. And I said that at the last meeting, and I was told, let's do the workshop and gather information and then have a time where we would go to Lebanon and the public could come. Am I making that up? Like that happened?
No, it did happen.
So is that not an okay plan with you?
I just don't know. Like, how do we gather the information without the people who have the knowledge?
Right. I said the same thing at the last meeting.
I'm fine with the workshop as far as like setting up, like scheduling, but like,
I think may I just have an observation? The Lebanon discussion is not as time bound, so to speak, to Josh's point about the board last year said that they really wanted to have the conversation about pre-K for the budget. Lebanon, it's a big conversation, but we're not looking to do anything to Lebanon for fiscal year 26, 27, right? Like we can't do anything right now with Lebanon. We're taking our time. So there's two timelines that are very different here. That's how I see the difference between the way that we approach either position.
And I think the tweaking of the Lebanon situation can occur.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean we're going to like shut the building down. You know what I mean? I get that.
There is tweaking that needs.
Yes, and that's fair. And those are the things so I don't want you to, because I think that's the survey we're working on. So it's like, just to be sure, like, what can we do a little differently?
I think I do support the idea of separating these two issues now that I'm really hearing more about it, contextualizing it more. I think the facilities study is a mountain. I mean, the document's over 1,000 pages long. That is like a huge thing. And it really, it has to do with pre-K, but it doesn't, right? So, I think a town hall of some type, which is what you're talking about, right? Like
a meeting could be a town hall type.
Yeah. Maybe something where we're like meeting in the auditorium like we do for the budget and really giving like a big, huge space that says like, hey, come here, all stakeholders to the pre-K conversation would be beneficial because it is such a huge change for our communities in so many good ways and in a couple challenging ways for business owners. So yeah, I do second the idea that we with the way our conversations go, they always take twice as long as we think they're going to, right?
Sure.
If not 3 times longer. So I just don't see how those two things could exist in the same meeting. I'm
not opposed to that. I'm just opposed to doing it before we have a track record. We're 4 weeks into the school year. We have assessments of pre-K.
An evaluation of the current model.
Yes, like an atmosphere read of the community. I think the sooner the better for that, especially after how things were very quick for the community last year. I think the slower we handle this year, the better.
So you don't care how it's going. You just want to.
No, I think it's more about stakeholders.
We have
Stakeholders in the idea of it.
We have a 1 year, we agreed to a 1 year pilot program. We don't start now. It will be April and somebody's going to say, are we going to continue it? And we're going to go, So we need to be thinking about, we don't have kindergarten pre-K next year at this point. It's done. Whether it's a good program or a bad program, unless we get another movement on that, we've got to figure out what we're going to, I think.
Well, so what we need to remember is that AJ shared a great document with us about the state subsidy projection.
Don't take my thunder.
So the reality is that if we choose not to do pre-K, which is totally doable, we will lose 90 students worth of state funding.
Right. But if we do it for it, eh?
So I was just thinking what I'm hearing.
Finish what I was going to say. But if we do pre-K first, my light's still on. Never shut off. 90
already built into the
Well, you have 90 students currently going to pre-K.
Mm-hmm.
We have 200 kids that need to go. So we're going to start a system of having some kids being ahead of the others, and the kindergarten teachers are going to come to you and say, half these kids know everything and the other half know nothing. We can't do this like we've done with kindergarten years ago. So we need to talk. That's all. I know that's why we need to talk. Subsidies, placements, where are they going? Who's going to truck them there? Bus them there, sorry.
I was just going to say, I think that, well, a couple of things. When your comment has changed, I do think it is a two-part meeting. I think that Josh and I had very specific concerns and questions when the pre-K meeting happened, and a lot of those have not. I still don't think we have the answers to the conversations with stakeholders, things like that. I think that is definitely a sooner than later thing. I think also we can't fully, or it's challenging to be able to fully, as a board, look at the success. We can talk the financials, but we could talk financials and then find out after the first semester, like, it's horrible or it's great. But I think that, yes, talking the financials and being aware of that up front is smart, but I think also knowing the success of the program and really getting the feedback of, we've heard over and over and over again that CDS, that kids who need CDS services aren't getting them unless they are in a school setting in the 3 to 5 program. So like, is that actually happening? Is that really coming to fruition? Do parents feel that those kids are being seen? Things like that. But I also want to be careful when we're talking about this. The document that I think Sue is about to mention is when we look at this, after state subsidy, everything else, the projected, this is not in writing, or this is not set in stone, but the projected 26, 27 net cost taxpayers in a document that we all received is $65,703. That's not that's essentially for 90 students, the cost of one teacher. So when we're saying like all this money, yes, it is money. I'm not saying it's not, but the actual projected impact to budget is just under $66,000.
90 kids.
I don't want to for 90 kids, right? So I just want us to be careful when we're saying these big changes and this big impact to taxpayers. We need to be talking actual numbers and not just stating
90 kids. That's the problem. We have far more than 90 kids coming into pre-K next year that are 4-year-olds.
Do we? We won't.
We don't know.
Consideration.
We have more than not coming into our public school pre-K. Sorry, kids who deserve to have pre-K. But we have 10 kids getting pre-K. They all deserve to get pre-K.
We do not disagree that we would love to have universal pre-K.
No,
We have to start somewhere, which is where we start.
I know. That's why we need to have a meeting.
Right. Get away because we can't give it to all. I don't know about that either.
I know.
We need to have,
need a meeting.
we need to have this conversation because you're right. It's not a huge cost to the overall tax base, right? But it's a loss of several tens of thousands of dollars to our local community businesses, right? And so, who have been serving the district for I don't even know how many years. And I think that's part of the conversation too. So,
But it's not our job to make sure that the local businesses stay in business. That's not our job. Our job is to provide
compete.
education for our population. My opinion.
On page 4 of the book, I just read it. The Drummond Woods book.
Okay.
So are we going to have like a pre-K? Is that I'm asking for the summary.
I think we should have a town style. I think we should make it as inclusive as possible and really try to gain back some of the goodwill of the community with these big plans.
All right, let's make a motion if we want to act on this.
I don't know. I kind of liked the workshopping meeting format that we used for the strategic planning. I don't know.
The format that we used to, did you like that?
I did.
So that's doable. That's public input. I don't think anyone on this side, but not for that, rather.
I don't mean like this, not like sitting at a table like this, like thing where we had all the different tables and
we can facilitate conversations that are not necessarily us talking them out there. We can have a more inclusive conversation. Like we can talk as a board about what information do you want to hear from your constituents? What type of looking at we'd invite all the pre-K folks, preschools in the district and have them come and talk about it with us. We can bring our pre-K parents that are experiencing this right now. We can talk about with our pre-K teachers. So if we're going to do it,
let's do it. Like, it's not just a session where we get a group of people that are cranked. Let's get everybody in to talk about like, what's the best next steps.
Like we did for the first.
Yeah, right. That's what.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. And it will not take me long to organize something like that.
So
We've got to get the word out.
3 board members have already asked for the special meeting. So can it just be scheduled?
That's we have a motion.
It's by policy. If 3 board members ask for a special meeting, then that's the trigger. It doesn't need a motion. That is the trigger to have a special meeting. I'm just asking for it to be scheduled. Is it going to be scheduled like December, November?
No, it'll be sooner than that if we're going to organize.
You're just talking about an additional board meeting. You're not.
Yeah, special meeting is that a special meeting. Now, the format, I'm open to format. I want to give an opportunity to collect all this information. That's what I'm looking to do.
It would
Confused.
It would be, I'm just trying to think about the language to use. It would, what I think it is a community engagement meeting regarding, specifically regarding pre-K. That where allows you as board members to sit at the tables and work with people and get information, and then we'll do a report out and do all that kind of stuff. That will then inform your conversation about pre-K. Does that make sense? So that it'll be a 2-step thing. We'll do a community forum basically, and then you guys would then, if it was a full-blown thing, when we can do a special meeting, like just specifically on the pre-K piece, or we may come to some very interesting conclusions just at a community forum, honestly. So I would say part A, and then part B would be formalizing it at a board meeting. If that makes sense. You okay with that? So I would suggest more meetings. I would suggest, it's okay, is what it is. Mid-November at the latest. Maybe
I'll be gone the 4th and 5th.
okay. What does either Monday the 10th
Or a PTA meeting.
or
The Saturday?
um
I usually can't do weekend.
Not in Beasley.
no,
I just love with pre-K parents, if we want pre-K parents, come at 8:00 at with the school teachers.
It's high. That's why.
You know, I should show up. Just like, well, offer a day for you. Can it be an earlier meeting?
yeah, right?
Maybe end of October.
30.
Not possible to get it in by the end of October
So
because we will have had like 2 facilities discussions
you think
by the time October ends.
that's enough though to people?
That's
5 weeks.
Well, we have regular meetings, right?
Like-
Facility, regular meeting, facility.
We can switch it out for I just have to, what I really want is time to reach the people that want to be here. So I want to make sure we have time for communication.
What about the last Thursday in September, Sue?
No, September.
I mean, October.
Go back.
Sorry, I'm tired.
It's trick-or-treating.
Yeah, that is Beggar's Night.
Yeah.
Northburg is very much your night.
It seems like 8th of October, like the Monday or Tuesday, 27th or 28th. Tend not to be in many committee meetings the last.
But what about Wednesday, the day before?
No, I hear Lauren over there saying Monday or Tuesday.
I could. Well,
No.
let's look at the 23rd, which we have a facilities meeting scheduled anyways. And we turn it into a community forum. I think I can do it.
And 5:30, you think?
It doesn't work.
I don't think we do. I thought we were just doing the 2nd. Yeah, the 9th.
Oh, sorry. I think I blocked out every Thursday of life. But the facilities is the 9th. It's next. Right. Well, yeah, I know that. So does the 23rd not work? Oh, wait.
All around back to back.
That's all right. And Allie, you're actually away that night. That we're up at the MSMA conference on the 24th.
I'm not sleeping over, but I will. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not been either, but it'll be hard to get back.
I would be back like right on time.
Okay, so let's look at how about the Monday, the 27th?
Yeah. And I think it's that sweet spot that might be right in between sports too.
I think that's good.
Is that our pick the first done?
Yeah.
And we say, do you want to, can people do a 5 o'clock start instead of a 7 o'clock?
You're hitting our time.
We want parents,
Yeah, we want parents. It's got to be a little bit later.
the community here. So
Right.
Like 6:30.
Yeah, I would say 6:30.
30, yeah.
I would do earlier. I see a lot of parents saying, not my night for dinner. I'm out of here going to a meeting.
well, we could,
What time are you thinking? You're thinking
I think 5 or 5:30 wouldn't be.
really?
I think 5:30 would be like the earliest possible. If people they want to work at 5.
Agree. That's, yeah.
Yes. I mean,
How about
6 honestly is the earliest I would do. Yeah.
six? Give it 2 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
So 27th, 6 p.m.
I think but then you're missing, I don't know. I think that's late for that group. You're missing bedtime if you do a 6 o'clock meeting. Someone's going to miss dinner that
daycare, it's the daycare providers, we really want to hear from first anyway. So if we can get them here.
Well, we need a very,
Nobody's daycare, pre-care, right?
need us very balanced. So, let's, okay.
Can you set the date and with the date send out a like little poll of times and then like just say we'll follow up within 1 week of the actual start time, but which will be signed for you.
We talked about setting up the meeting where it's kind of like it's round table discussion. What if we were more flexible with our time and just said, hey, this is the time to have the open forum conversations, right? So
I think it works.
you can come 5,
Yeah.
I would be willing to be here at 5 o'clock. I'd be one of those who would be willing and able. I'm able to be here at 5 o'clock, right? We listen to people.
Let's be, let's not set it in stone just yet about format. Can you let me think about it?
Yeah, let's,
I like the strategic planning guided question. I like that. With the conversation, of course, you don't just be like, wow, this is my 2-word answer to this. Like conversations evolved and brought up some really other great points and great questions. But with that, well, I like the flexibility of what you're providing. I also think that we need to be really respectful of time. And I would hate for someone to come at 5 and then be like, oh, it's 6 o'clock. I was going to leave, but they're just starting a really great conversation. I don't want to miss, like, you know what I mean? Like I would want people to come and feel.
So what I would, taking that into account, I think, if you can just give me like 24 hours to think about it, I can set up a format and I'll shoot it out to you guys and we can decide if it works. 30. I do need though is apparently there are people that are talking to you. So I would like names of people that you want to make sure are invited. We want to have a good representation of the district. So if you have providers that are concerned, please let me know who to invite besides just the typical, like I know a half dozen of the pre-K folks in our district, but I don't know everybody. So I need that information and then we'll do a district information, put it out there as well. But a big part of this is that, you know, we've got to manage. It has to be an RSVP. We have to know who's coming because in order to actually facilitate good conversations at tables, I typically move people into certain, you know, you split them up, you get people talk and do those things. And so it has to be, it's not storm the walls, but more like, let's have a real conversation.
Just like speed dating.
Good day.
That's what it's sounding like.
That's not what that's not typical. But typically you do set up tables and you have like people from all 3 towns, people from different, like the pre-K parents, we have teachers, we have providers, we have other folks that are interested so that you have board members at each table, that kind of thing.
Is it a productive place to go?
And then you have people that, you know, facilitate the conversations enough and keep it moving and do some note taking and things like that. So I got to make sure people are willing to do that and
like
some administration there to help out with that.
Like, and if you weren't there for strategic planning, like we each had like an easel piece of paper that I don't remember the questions, but it was like top 5 concerns or like top 5 things that came out of your group or whatever. And so you did it. And then we hung them, that whole area, like we hung them up so you could see in each person. Yes. So like it was very collaborative and the conversations that came from it were.
Yeah. And again, the key is to pull from this information that you as a board can use and be able to talk about.
So, quick question.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at the, I don't remember why, but I went on Google and saw pre-K providers in the area. There are a lot of them. But I think it would make sense to just include everybody, because we don't know who are doing a better job than others, but it would get everybody here.
Understood, and I'll do that. But I have a feeling that you guys have some specific folks that have been talking with you, so I'd love to make sure that I take care of that.
No,
So
well, just this last year, I think it was,
We had one that came up to us last year at a few meetings.
yeah, but that was, I haven't talked to, are you kidding me? Okay. Just concerned.
Aggressive.
I know, right? There's a lot. And it's like,
All right. Are you done with your other?
I'm done.
Make the motion, Lauren.
We still have public input. You get on your path.
Oh, right.
I will just, hats off to Audra. I just was driving down doing pickups the other day and I was like, that Audra standing on the side of Route 9, like figuring out what's going. So she was in person out actually observing traffic patterns and all the things and taking a look to see what was going on. So I just thought that was nice and worth mentioning. And then also today is Custodian Appreciation Day. So just we are grateful for all of our amazing custodians who keep our schools beautiful and clean. So thank you.
Didn't we just hear them? I'm here. Didn't I see your son?
Going home. Yeah.
Thank you.
So any other? Make a motion to adjourn. We have
Public input? Any public input?
any public input. Okay, sorry, just kidding.
I will.
I will be excited. Rescind my motion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. Yes. Motion. Yes, sir. So first of all, I'd appreciate the boards and collective to this an alternative public record. I would advise the board to consider that the Freedom of Access Act that name requires the accurate and true records public meetings kept, and that the editing of a public comment, even if it's an attempt to provide factual checking, would actually not be keeping a true public record, and that would be a violation of 17 is the MRSA section 456 for tampering with public records or information, knowing that making a false entry on somebody's comment, and not only that, but a gross violation of the person's First Amendment rights. Factual to the best of their knowledge is a deep interpretation right there. Some people have some crazy beliefs, and so it's factual in their mind. But that aside, I do appreciate that disclaimer, and we're asking to consider that if that ever comes up again, that some public records are really required. Also, I would ask the board to consider that you are here to educate our kids and not to consider had a business interests in the area. And I would be deeply concerned about real or perceived conflicts of interest in considering those private businesses and anything other than the education of our children within the bounds of our community's capability. Also, from the perspective of somebody who just got a kid in kindergarten, maybe personally, there is not enough pre-K coverage in this area for all of the kids, and it is so expensive. So anything the district can do to actually offer more will make that more competitive and more available to more people. So we have a serious shortage of pre-K availability. Now, I would advise the school board, especially if there's funding that will help alleviate that from the state, is to take as strong advantage of that as they can.
Thank you, Dan.
Make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. And then motion's been made, seconded, and thirded, and fourth. We have those in favor together.
Thank you.
Opposed? Night.
Hey, everybody.